Hi guys, this is Pine from Ventura Motorsports. Just gonna make a little video on how to pretty much install and get this turbo kit on. It's a very amateur way. I really don't have an engine open out to lay out in front of you, so I'm just gonna be going as far as I can help with some instructions and some steps, I guess, per se, involved in this and what we would recommend doing. Of course, we would always recommend a professional shop doing this. Again, most people feel comfortable doing this at home. So pretty much we're trying to get this video out so we can help everybody accommodate all the pieces needed for this turbo kit and the install. So we're going to start with pretty much pulling out everything that the stock turbos are involved with. As you can see, the front intake has been taken out, the vacuum tanks. I'm not too sure what else. The coolant reservoir is obviously relocated here, so that's pretty much it on that side. Over here I left the rear intake tube still. It was a little hard to reach, so I couldn't take it out. But of course, if you have everything out, let's say subframe is out and undone, we'll go on from there. I would say first things first is to install the harder things that are down in the tough places before the manifold and everything else. First things first, this is the first things I would install. After the coolant is out, the oil is drained, you clean up everything, and you're ready to install. First things first, you'd have to reuse the stock O-rings for these pieces here. These three pieces will need stock O-rings. I reused mine, they were fine. You guys, it's totally on you. I see no reason why they should be chopped up or anything. So I would do that. Over here, this is your oil feed. This will be replacing the two that split up. It will be one. You will reuse the stock bolt for this. So there's no bolt, you will reuse the stock one, so make sure you don't throw anything away from your stock parts. Make sure to Teflon all NPT fittings. This will go here along with the straight shot from here. After we install that from the bottom, we would install this as well in the coolant drain on the left and right side of the engine. This will be for the second, sorry about that, this will be for the second oil drain. This is a freeze plug. You will just tap it in a couple times, it will seal in. You will have to use a mallet, make sure it's in. After you get all the block fittings in place, these three, I would go ahead and install this as well, and then just put it aside. And for the front, so right now I'm going to be a little amateur as well. I'm going to pretty much put the block fittings in place as laid out. Imagine this is the N54 and the turbo kit is pretty much just flat on. This is where the coolant feed will go, something like this. Be something like that with the oil feed in place. That's one drain plug. That and that pretty much will go somewhere on the block, and this will be going around and coming back all the way to the top pretty much. What else I would like to recommend? So how we have our hardline set up is that you will reuse one of your front stock oil drain. you will have to cut it when it flexes, and you will have to use maybe about 5 to 6 inches of heater hose in place with one of these. So first thing I would do is put that oil drain, put about 5 inches of hose and tighten one end. Leave one end open for the drain in the end. We're going to do that after the manifold is mounted on. So the next step that we would get to is actually getting to the coolant outlet. What you have to do is reuse the O-ring from your stock one, pull it out, slide it in here, and we give you 4 new bolts for that to use to get into the head. You will reuse that and put it all in, and we're pretty much starting from our way down of the engine up. After we install the little pieces, make sure everything is secured and good, you can pretty much move on to the manifold. So I'll take half of the manifold right here on the desk, flip it around so people can see the inserts. This is a stock firing ring, pretty much gasket seal for the exhaust side. This is a used one. It looks okay. Yours might look okay, but it needs to be tight. I mean, yeah, this one looks like it's a nice tight fit. It will fit right on, right before you put it on. We recommend getting new ones, just like that, and right before you put it on the head. So before tightening this down onto the head, suppose we have everything in place, these are all in the studs and the manifold is on place. What we recommend right now is, first things first, is tightening this and making sure you have a proper seal before putting the manifold tight to the head. I repeat, V-band needs to be tight before manifold is tight to the head, and you need to do that while it's loose, not tied to the head. So what we like to do, I know some people don't like it, but I've been doing it for all the kits that we install here locally. We use some high red temp silicone. We use a little bit around here, make sure we get a nice good seal, and the V-band in it literally just stays on like putty. Even after inspection of pulling Ondo's kit, there was still resin stayed there from the flange that we use, as well as the merge right here for the manifold with the silicone. So I really like this stuff. This is what I recommend using. It hasn't given me any problems, and I don't believe it should give you guys problems either. So supposing that after the V-band is tight right here, make sure you get a nice good seal, you tighten the head, and what we're talking about in the install with the tight spots to use these would be somewhere in this area where you would need it. There's some more down here under that you would need it as well. Down there, here, and here as well. You're going to need about 5 of them, which we supply. And that's pretty much all I can say for that side. Moving on to the wastegates now. Supposing everything is on and fitted, you would move on to the wastegates, assuming you know what spring pressure you want. I am at 0.8 bar spring, which is around 11.6 psi. So I like that. Most automatic cars, they seem to go with like 8 psi, 10 psi springs. I wouldn't really run anything higher than 12 personally. Now the way we have this set up, I have a picture I'm gonna upload in the thread with the way these fittings are set up with the max solenoid and everything. It'll come out look something like this somewhere around here for you guys as well. Right now, pretty much, let's move on to positioning the wastegates. You'll see in a picture I'll upload, this dump tube will be facing like this when the wastegate is on, and the other dump tube will be following around like this in the front. They will match up. It'll look like two shotgun barrels when they come down and meet in the end. After the wastegates are on, the AN fittings are on. You can, once the turbo is out from here and there's no downpipe, there's a lot of room where you would actually be able to tighten all the AN fittings and everything that you would need to make sure you always use the Teflon for the NPT fittings on the wastegate and on the max solenoids, and everything AN. Obviously you do not need any Teflon. So moving on from there, after the wastegates are properly in with the dump tubes and everything, you'll move on to the O2 sensors. They will go in 1 and 2. Pretty simple. Make sure you don't mix them up. You'll know which one's what. Pretty much this side is for this one, this side is for the second one. It'll go like that. O2s go in. Then I would possibly just do a double check on everything else before the turbo is about to go in. I would right now possibly, there is a the head for the coolant reservoir. You will need to cut about maybe 5 inches of it, 4 inches of it. You will reuse that with a 90-degree fitting. So right now, assuming this is your coolant feed, your coolant reservoir, and you have the bottom feed from here, it's going to come out like this and come under the charge pipe, and it's going to try to go into the belt. Okay, and that's why we have this 90-degree fitting. It's going to totally avoid that. It's going to go from here, attach to there, and then it's going to come again back around through here. It's going through, and then you're going to have another barb right here that attaches to that. You're going to use approximately 3 feet of this hose along to extend it. So that's what I would do before putting the turbo in and getting anything else underway. I would do that. Now right here, it pretty much goes from here and extends on over here with a sort of a plastic type of hard line. I just pulled it out from there and I just reused the shorty fit, and I used the regular clamp, the stock one. We give you a little one so you could use to replace it, you know. That's what we give this for. And that's that. Mounting this, forgive me, I have so many things on my plate. I'm just don't even have this really mounted up right. This should be under this bracket, and this goes under everything. I just put this for the meantime. This will actually go under the bracket, and there's another plate. Sorry, so many things. Pretty much like that. That will go like that to keep this up here, and that like that. This will sit up once it's nice and straight. Forgive me for my backyard built right now. My car is just a beta. So moving on from that, you will reuse these stock 2 nuts here from this AC line. It really doesn't do anything. You could hold it up or glue it on or something. I really just left mine up there. And then the wiring, of course, we supply the 6-foot wire. It should be more than enough. You can cut it or do anything that you would like. Just pretty much what I did was I followed it down. I tried to get as much length from the sensor as possible. I cut it, use the butt sensors, go from the front, and then attach the butt sensors to the sensor, and plug it right in there. One issue we noticed we had when we first installed this is that the sensor is actually facing in towards the wheel well. What you can do is you can actually turn the sensor around and face it this way, so you don't have to cut into the wheel well or anything like that. So the coolant is done. Everything should be routed on from here. The next thing that I would do right now is possibly, I guess we're ready to install the turbo. Okay, assuming all the lines are in, next thing that I would do is I would RTV this with red silicone. Most people use gaskets. The silicone hasn't given me any issues. We use that, and we use the 4 flange bolts to bolt right on. It's a nice fit from the top. You just use it, it'll go in nicely. Now after that, we would split the turbo up into 3 pieces. There is the hot, there's the center cartridge, and then there's the cold side. So after installing the hot side, the next side would be the cold side, and the cartridge. And what we would do right now for the cartridge is I would try to orient the hard line the best way. Pretty much it will go over everything, the wastegates, and fit right through there, where the best thing to do is pretty much try to have someone from the bottom, once you have this tight onto the cartridge, someone from the bottom just to pretty much aim it, and it'll go right into the heater hose, and you just snug it right there. Put the cartridge on, tighten up the 6 bolts from there, and then you have the compressor housing. And what we would recommend before putting the compressor housing on is putting the bottom charge pipe in with the silicone on and everything. So as you're going to go down and in to put the compressor housing on, you will put it into the silicone as well into place to tighten up everything. Then you're going to bring out your oil feed, tighten up your oil drain. I hope you did before you put the compressor cover on, sorry about that. And then pretty much the diagram, follow the diagram from the compressor to the max solenoid, and make sure you have everything lined up. This is the max solenoid. This is the plug-and-play harness that we supply as well. Oh man, I don't know if I can say anything else. I guess after that, the only thing would be I didn't really bring up would be this. Would pretty much just relocate into here, just take over, and go in to the water pump. The downpipe, I would say the best thing to do is to make sure you tighten it from the top and then from the bottom. What I always do is I would just make sure I would silicone it as usual. I don't know, I'm a fan of it. It just makes everything easier because you don't want it to leak, because if you start it and you have a leak, it's gonna get really hot really quick, and you're gonna have to give it some time before you can get it to cool off again. You can see what's going on. So we just use silicone, put a nice amount on it, nothing really happens, and it just gives a good seal everywhere. That's what we would do. That's what we did. Everything's running fine. I've had this on for pretty much a year now. Daily driving, maybe 25,000 miles in a year, and I love it. That's how we install the Ventura Motorsports top mount, and what I would have to recommend doing. Sorry for this amateur video again. I hope maybe it'll give some insight on how to install it and everything. One thing I guess I forgot to mention about the turbo blanket, it does come with springs. However, that's maybe used for applications where it's like upside down or under. I mean, this thing doesn't really go anywhere. I just put it in there and it's snug, and it keeps nice and cool. It really doesn't do anything. And yeah, this filter is amazing for this kit. I just don't really know what else to say. You just after you do this, just upload a flash, assuming you have the JB4, put on the single turbo hex, do in some numbers, the CPS values, AFR values, whatever you have to do, fix everything, and just go for a map 4 test drive. You know, make sure you're hitting wastegate boost, and once you are, move on to map 1, and that's it. Set and forget and enjoy it. You know, that's how we do it over here.